There is an absolutely ridiculous article about China's Communist Party that's published on CNN.com. The article claims that Xi Jingping was supposed to save the Communist Party in China, but he's destroyed it by making himself into this megalomaniacal despot. The article honestly reads like a bad Tom Clancy novel or a script straight from some terrible Hollywood spy movie. And among some of the more glaringly obvious garbage that's published in this piece of trash, CNN claims that, quote, to further concentrate power into his own hands, Xi Jinping set up more than a dozen central leading groups to oversee important policy areas, including military reform, cybersecurity, finance, and foreign policy. A relic from the Mao era, these informal bodies are secretive and almost never publicize full lists of their members. From what's been revealed in state media reports, Xi personally heads at least 7 of them, and many of his loyalists hold important positions, end quote. This country has a whole agency full of employees who have died spying on other countries and carrying out other deadly covert imperialist actions abroad for the U.S., but we'll never know their names because the only indication that they ever existed is a star on the wall or in the floor or wherever those anonymous stars are for all those dead, nameless foot soldiers for imperialism that are displayed at CIA headquarters in Langley, Virginia. And then local police investigate themselves, and the public who's been harmed by cops in those agencies have no idea who does the investigating and who lets abusive and killer cops off half the time. Hell, in most large cities, community members don't even know how many complaints have been lodged against the cops roaming their streets or the nature of those complaints. These people aren't serious about any accusations of secrecy against Xi Jinping, are they? Then CNN goes on to allege that, quote, in 2015, Xi silenced internal dissent. A revised version of the party's disciplinary regulations banned groundless criticism of the party center's decisions and policies, end quote. Is anyone in the U.S. really criticizing anyone in another country about silencing dissent? Mumia Abu-Jamal is still in prison. Assata Shakur is still in exile. Occupy Wall Street was violently crushed under the Obama administration. Indigenous people defending their land from destructive and deadly pipelines are violently opposed by coalitions of law enforcement agencies. Countless activists were imprisoned and charged with federal crimes in an attempt to destroy the movement in the streets for Black lives after the public lynching of George Floyd. I mean, just a few days ago in North Carolina, Miquan Domel Garfield pled guilty to 1 count of conspiracy to commit an offense against the United States, a charge relating to the 2020 fire at a Raleigh police Southeast substation. And Garfield will go to prison for 30 months. But the guy who stormed the Capitol in the fascist attack that actually resulted in people's deaths, he only gets 8 months in prison. Paul Hodgkins pled guilty last month to obstructing congressional proceedings. The Justice Department wanted 1.5 years for that dude, but oh no. District Judge Randolph Moss said that while Hodgkins did contribute to a grave offense against democracy, he deserves some leniency because he pled guilty exceptionally early and wasn't involved in violence, and he issued a sincere apology. Judge Moss said, quote, Hodgkins was staking a claim on the floor of the United States Senate, not with the American flag, but with the flag declaring his loyalty to a single individual over the entire nation, end quote. That's what the judge said. Milwan Garfield tried to set a police car on fire, and he was pushed into accepting a guilty plea for participating in a conspiracy against the whole United States. And doesn't that sound like silencing people's dissent in this country to you? You know it is. But in what is probably the wildest claim in the article, CNN alleged that Xi's bullish policies aren't just weakening the party internally, they are compromising its standing internationally. Recent surveys from around the world have shown China's reputation is at its lowest point in decades. They cite a Pew survey published in October 2020 that found negative attitudes toward China have soared over the past few years in multiple European, Asian, and North American countries, partly due to its handling of the COVID-19 pandemic. That's what CNN claims. But when you look at the study and you see what those countries are, they're Spain, Germany, Canada, the Netherlands, Denmark, Belgium, France, Italy, the UK, South Korea, Sweden, and Australia, and of course, the United States. Oddly, all U.S. allies, and let me just say it, a bunch of colonizing, imperialist, capitalist nations, and you see what this is, right? The U.S. has a lot of nerve with the continued attacks against China, particularly trying to paint Xi Jingping to be some particularly evil despot, the likes of which the world has never seen. But every U.S. president has been an evil despot, heaping oppression after oppression and cracking down on dissent domestically and propping up actual strongmen and despots and puppet leaders to control the masses, rising up against their imperialist meddling internationally since, forever. So when Chinese Vice Foreign Minister Xi Jingping said during the predictably tense meeting with Deputy U.S. Secretary of State Wendy Sherman that, quote, the United States want to reignite the sense of national purpose by establishing China as an imaginary enemy, as if once China's development is suppressed, U.S. domestic and external problems will be resolved and America will be great again and America's hegemony can be continued. He exposed both the strategy and the lies of the U.S. And no amount of breathless imperialist propaganda against China from CNN or any other U.S. media outlet will make that untrue. Follow Luqman Nation on patreon.com/LuqmanNation for lots of great content.